AI companies are buying up old books, scanning them, and then destroying them. They're burning the books. Now, while I disagree with the connotation that burning the books is actually some type of a legitimate thing that happened in history, and it was totally done to just suppress knowledge and wasn't destroying the Sex Institute, thanks to Magnus Hirschfeld, it is still something that's happening. The synthetic data degeneration that we're seeing in society is a variety of different projects undermining people's capability to read, undermining their access to these books, and then, of course, now buying up books through Project Panama and destroying them. So you've heard all about this from different people, whether they're right-wing or whether they're left-wing. Many of these people, very ironically, are those who benefited from the system that already rewrote history. That they already lie to these people about history. Their entire worldview is predicated upon many lies about history, yet these people want to preach to you about how an AI company is going to lie about history. Sorry, buddy. That already happened a lot, like all the time. But Glenn Beck, the biggest philo-Semite on earth, he said in video,
I don't know why I was born, but there is something about the state of Israel that connects deeply to me. So I want to read a letter that I wrote that I am sending to the state of Israel. In this moment, I have chosen to ask you for citizenship in the state of Israel.
That he doesn't know why he was born, but he thinks it was to serve Israel. And then he begs Netanyahu for an Israeli citizenship. I'm not kidding. I'm not taking that out of context. That's genuinely what he says in the video. He believes that his purpose is to serve the Jewish people. Well, he talks specifically about Anthropic, led by Dario Amodei, who is a Jewish man, who gained some notoriety this year due to his interactions with Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump, because he didn't allow them to use a killer version of his AI systems in drones. So he was cut from all federal contracts. Regardless, they are using a service called ISBN-DB, which facilitates the sale of millions of books and keeps their buyers private. And Anthropic is making a digital data trove of historical books and then destroying them. So they could, of course, try to monopolize a lot of information that the public otherwise wouldn't have. Now, I don't truly believe that there would be serious gaps in memory or in history, so long as we just continue printing different books. I think that's maybe a harder ask than people might think, depending on how hard these books are to come by, how much they cost, and then how transcribing them might go. So I'm questioning the efficiency of the large language model systems that they're training with this. But of course, let's hope that they can decode these and that they don't just hide it from the public, which I'm certain a tech company would never try to duplicitously, mislead the public about something. In theory, a handful of people could create a digital monopoly of this information and then just lie. We know full well that many things that we're taught about history are misrepresentations or a very biased reading or just factually incorrect. But of course, if you have historians agree on this, or if you just manufacture evidence for it, or you just delete all opposing opinions for it, then nobody can really disagree with you. If, for example, you were to train the search system algorithms to just give you that response every single time, then of course your version of reality is going to be the most real. And then if you reinforce that through public education, then nobody can ever question you. And the average person just won't even bother because they're not that inquisitive and they're not trying to prove every single thing that they believe from first principles. As artificial developers scale large language models and the tech industry encounters a model collapse, a severe recursive degradation that occurs when AI models are trained on synthetic machine-generated text. And then AI companies also actively source uncorrupted pre-2022 physical print literature, especially books from the 1800s and early 1900s, and then they scan them and then they pulp them. So fact check, libtard, they're not burning the books, they're turning them into pulp. Court filings unsealed in the federal copyright lawsuit Bartz versus Anthropic revealed that Anthropic, PBC, led by Chief Executive Officer Dario Amodei, executed a large-scale text acquisition program called Project Panama. Why are they naming this shit so ominously like they're the U.S. military? Who fucking knows? Managed by former Google Books executive Tom Turvey, Anthropic systematically purchased millions of copies of physical pre-2022 print books to rapidly convert these physical texts into machine-readable data sets so they can train Claude and other Anthropic AI systems. And then they're also claiming that their Anthropic AI systems are like super powerful and they can like totally hack into any computer. I shared that in a previous video. I am not entirely saying that's impossible again, but I'm also telling you that like AI companies definitely want to lie about shit all the time, so we don't know yet. Anthropic utilized a destructive scanning process, as I've told you multiple times here, where the bindings and spines of physical books are sliced off, enabling loose pages to be fed through an automated high-speed scanner, allowing optical character recognition extraction, and then the physical pages are shredded and then pulped. Again, they're not burned. They're just destroyed permanently forever. So in June 2025, U.S. District Judge William Alsup issued a fair use ruling regarding this process specifically. The court determined that purchasing a physical book, converting its text into a digital format, and immediately destroying the physical medium does not violate copyright law under the copy count doctrine, as no net new physical copy is added to public circulation. So they destroyed one, but they didn't add a new physical one. They just have a digital one. Are they going to share the digital one with everybody else? I don't fucking know. However, Anthropic separately paid $1.5 billion to settle parallel copyright claims regarding its retention of central digital repositories containing pirated ebooks. So they're already willing to violate, the code of ethics and just buy a bunch of books and destroy them. They're also willing to like go pirate a fuck ton of books. Again, that's totally fine. If you're a college student, you're trying to save like a few $100 on your, books because you're already going to go into major debt for like some useless degree, especially made even more useless by AI. I could have a whole video about that. Haha. The demand for pre-synthetic data, though, here is clearly like an ethics issue. And the people who run these AI companies, they're not known for their amazing ethics, are they? These AI companies will collaborate with databases that index over 111 million volumes, actively marketing bulk physical book procurement services so they could literally and intentionally buy out every single copy of a book that they can find and then try to destroy it. So they're not just buying like individual books, so there's just a lot of them in circulation. No, they're destroying entire batches of the same book. Now, there aren't specific lists that I've been provided with, nor that I could really find on what books by title. But if they're buying pre-2022 books and they go back up to 200 years, they're not exactly probably buying, widely printed shit now, are they? They might be doing us a service, a benefit to society, if you will, if they were buying up some of the things you buy in the Target book aisle. If they were buying up some of the shit you see in shelves at Barnes & Noble and destroying those, I don't think anybody would complain. Now, there's no clean chain of custody for this data, and they are not really guaranteeing that this is free of AI-generated content if they are going to list it online. And that is if, because they can just withhold any of the books that they scan. So if they share it, they could just alter the books too. So they either don't share it and they just destroyed a fuck ton of books, or they share it and they just alter them, and there's no promise that they haven't altered them. Following a July 2026 investigative report by 404 Media, ISBN DB deleted its AI data sourcing landing pages and issued a public statement claiming that they were not offering this to AI companies, and that offering it actually was a test of marketing interest, denying direct execution of book destruction pipelines, even though they were definitely supplying these books en masse to these AI companies so they could be destroyed. Now, the long-term consequences of mass destruction of books is not yet known. Rare, out-of-print, regional, and specialized historical texts, many existing in limited physical quantities, again, as I've said, could have been completely eliminated, but we don't entirely know. These digitizing operations, again, didn't publish any exact list of books that they acquired. But if they did successfully buy out a copy of a book that was rare and then scan it and then destroy it, people would just not even know to look for it because it wouldn't appear. They could likely just request that it doesn't even show up in Google's search results. And unless you just happen upon a copy of this book and then you can't find anything about it online, there's no way that you would know that this book existed. So not only are they likely to have a complete digital monopoly over this historical record keeping, but they would also not be caught for it, because nobody would even know that that book existed if they just destroyed every other copy of it. And many publishers, many ideologues, many people in positions of power in politics or public education or universities, many academics already do kind of control and shift the historical record keeping. But I mean, just look at who owned McGraw-Hill. Famously, people think that Robert Maxwell owned all of McGraw-Hill. I don't believe he owned all of it, but he did own at least 50% of McGraw-Hill Publishing, which made most of the history books in the United States. There's Scholastic, major publishing houses for school textbooks, have spent the last century getting infiltrated. Maybe Pearson is owned or ran by a Christian. I mean, Omar Abash was born in Iraq. He was raised in England. There's not that much great public information. Let's look at a photo of him. But, I don't believe that people like this can always be trusted. And they also don't have direct control over everything that is printed and edited within their textbooks. Peter Warwick of Scholastic has a degree in African American studies, and just look at this dude's face. Tell me that you trust that guy. The authors that these publishing companies will hire, the editors that they use, and the historians that they cite could just be equally as biased. The executive staff and the people doing the marketing direction for these textbooks could also have biases, especially when it comes to your account of history and soft sciences that people can hardly even consider science. Now, mathematics, engineering, even though engineering can have some bias in it, you're much less likely to encounter that. But where they have the leeway, they will insert whatever they want. It's easy to rewrite history since people can just lie. I mean, we've always been able to do this all throughout history. If you're keeping a record of something that happened and you just claim that you completely destroyed the opposing force in the battlefield and you only lost 10 men, who's going to doubt you? Of course you're right. I mean, you were there. Whether or not you were actually there, it doesn't matter. You can just claim you were, and then fuck it. 2 centuries later, people are just interpreting your writing and saying that it's absolutely true. And then if you were to destroy the record of all other interpretations of that historical event, then it would be really easy to prevent future generations from proving that you actually lied. It's also easier if you just rot people's brains now. If you run social media programs with short form content so they can only process like 15 seconds of highly edited content or like 1 to 2 minutes of information, but they don't even actually like watch all of it. Maybe they like set it down and they're like wiping their ass or something. That really doesn't help for a person's attention span. And they're going to continue to scroll because that's like a new dopamine hit. And it's not like they're going to get off their social media and then like go and read a whole book. And are they going to go scrounge around like flea markets and estate sales to find rare books and then, make it their goal to share this information publicly with everyone that they can? Probably not. No, they're going to just keep scrolling on Instagram Reels and TikTok. So you destroy their brain with this dopamine cycle. Maybe not destroy. I think that's improper wording. But you destroy their life habits so they don't explore new information. We already see a variety of people attempting to portray the United States or the United Kingdom or any European nation as like constantly diverse. Actually, all of its kings were totally black and shit. Trust me, man. That's another one. Holy smokes. The We Wuzzery is insane on Instagram, claiming that we've always been a melting pot, actually. I would love to publish a whole video on that once I'm done with the AI and technology stuff. We've never had a peaceful nation. We've always had insane crime. In fact, it was way, way, way worse. Trust me. And we've never had a productive, industrious nation. We've always relied on like everybody else all the time. I believe buying up and shredding old books will not only monopolize access to the information, but it's just like taking the same exact tendencies that we see in society right now and ramping it up to perfection. Because then you finally close like the one remaining gap that you have, because you can no longer be opposed by people who are pulling out historical records. So they don't have the equal legitimacy that they might have right now. And again, if all it takes is one editor to change a Wikipedia entry to make something true or not true, if all it takes is for mainstream news to really force a narrative and for algorithms to proliferate certain content but down-regulate other content and really amplify whatever narrative they want, then yeah, we can create reality and shape it as we want to completely alter what people's perception of the world is. I mean, during COVID, they just made everybody fall victim to this social experiment and everybody went along with it. And now, even today, some people get a little bitter when you bring up that they fell so fully for a psychological operation. In fact, just analyze your public education or even private education. Think about the lessons that are taught every single year in public schools. You're legally required to attend a public school or you're truant unless your family goes through the process of, homeschooling. White people are evil, colonization, slavery, every single war in history. But it's not like, other cultures just didn't record wars because they didn't have written languages, especially World War II. I mean, come on. But actually, maybe white people are good because of World War II, because of America or some shit. It's not like we committed a bunch of war crimes. The only good parts of history were the progressive era. Let's ignore the eugenics and sterilization and unethical human experiments or whatever. And the civil rights era, which was perfect. Even though, let's ignore that MLK slapped around Loretta Scott and he cheated on his wife with multiple women and he, would hook up with prostitutes and he watched, gay men have sex and he had gay sex with male prostitutes. And this was not just attested by the FBI, but also by, other civil rights figures and, women that were around him. And he also watched his friend firsthand commit rape and he, defended this guy. And then he didn't write his own speeches. And then MLK also, didn't even really earn his degree. And he was a complete blasphemer. And he didn't believe that Jesus Christ came back from the dead. And he didn't believe that the Virgin Mary was a virgin, or he didn't believe in the Immaculate Conception. He didn't even believe in any of the Christian stories. So he's not even a reverend. He's not a doctor. And this dude is not a saint whatsoever, but people immortalized him in the psyche of America. And he's the black man. Not like Malcolm X was much better, but let's be honest here. MLK was not some type of fucking saint. And you're taught every single year about how fucking amazing he is and how he was a central figure, even though he was entirely astroturfed. I could have an amazing video, full form, on the NAACP and the Urban Institute and the SCLC being completely funded and controlled by other people. They were not pushing for civil rights entirely on their own volition. Obviously, they advocated for themselves, but they were heavily funded by capitalists, if you want to say that. Also, people ignore a lot of major stories about the civil rights movement because it's inconvenient when you realize they're not actually peacefully protesting. And a lot of the art in that era was just as disgusting and horrible as the shit that you're seeing now. And again, this is 60 years ago. Let's ignore the government lying about babies in incubators so we can start wars, or the Gulf of Tonkin incident and the McCollum memo before Pearl Harbor. We had advanced knowledge of that. Or the sinking of the USS Maine, which was totally not loaded with the dynamite. And the sinking of the RMS Lusitania, which was transporting a fuck ton of munitions directly into a path of a bunch of U-boats where a U-boat wolf pack was operating. And we knew that it would get sunk, and then it didn't stop so it can be inspected, even though it was ordered to stop multiple times. And then we just let it get sunk. Let's ignore everything that went on with the Warren Commission and other things like this. The government would never lie to you. Private organizations and think tanks will never alter data to lie to you. So if an AI company is buying up books and shredding them, well, then they're not doing that to lie to you. It's just the most efficient thing they can do. I mean, what are they going to just piece the book back together? Come on now, that's not going to happen. And if educational institutions and the government and public media and private corporations are willing to lie to you, and then they do shape public opinion using a variety of different mechanisms and societal conditioning, well, then you must never deviate from that. And I mean, if you do, then there must be something wrong with you. And they can threaten your job or remove you from education and, possibly destroy your life and employment capabilities because whatever you believe or whatever you're saying is socially taboo and it's unconventional. Why would you want to challenge us anyways? Are you some type of evil demon? That's the type of social conditioning that they've drilled into the minds of the average person. Clearly, if you believe something that's contrary to the status quo, you must want to commit horrible crimes and hurt people. What's wrong with you? See, that type of information control is just a matter of direction and intensity. And we already have the direction, so they're going to ramp the intensity up to as extreme as possible. This type of censorship is perfectly exemplified on TikTok, where the names of certain individuals, even content creators and live streamers and political organizations that march with the American flag, simply cannot be mentioned, or you receive a strike and your account can be banned. That such thing happened to me. I was banned with around 204,000 followers on TikTok in the middle of July, retroactively, when an AI automation system automatically struck 5 videos at once because I talked about a certain news story that happened in the beginning of July. See, you're not going to be allowed to mention this stuff in the future. Maybe you're not even going to be allowed to be on social media because they're going to be using ID verification and they're going to de-anonymize the internet. And if you have a known track record of disagreeing with the status quo, they just won't allow you to type anything online. Is that a little schizo? Maybe, but I mean, they can already do that automatically. The AI algorithm is very efficient on TikTok. I've only seen what the future probably holds for every other social media platform. There are already major limitations on social media, for example, and internet access for teens and young adults around the Western world, so kids won't be radicalized online. They claim that it's to protect kids from grooming and exposure to pornography. This just gives administrators broad authority to limit political content in different jurisdictions. For example, my TikToks are banned in the United Kingdom. I don't even talk about that much. I talked about the grooming report, but like I'm not telling people to go revolt and protest in the United Kingdom. I kind of made a joke about it when they did it in Ireland, but that shit was just funny. See, these countries realize young people are impressionable, so if they control what young people see and they only show them biased or rewritten history, then these young people will never question it, especially, again, if you're rotting their brain with short-form video content. There are services made to get around these verifications and facial recognition software, of course, but how long until those things are patched? This is also clearly another way to institute a digital ID online and de-anonymize the internet. Again, like I said, social media like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or TikTok require you to put in your driver's license to either verify your identity to get a blue check mark or to participate in the creator program or bonuses so they can pay you. But the thing is, if they're just straight up paying you, of course you're going to sell out and give all of your personal information. They're already tracking you anyways, right? Phones track location data constantly. Apps catalog data across other parts of your phone and your search queries. They also look at your emails. They're not really supposed to do that, but they don't give a shit. I'll remind you, these companies tell you in their terms of service that they are cataloging like all of this, even your biometric data. TikTok was sued over collecting facial scans. Now they just tell you out and out that they're collecting recordings of your voice, what your eyes look like, your facial expressions, and your whole face scan. They used to be, told that they're not really supposed to do that. Now they're just allowed to do that. People would be getting different engagement based upon their rated cosmetics and their race, which is kind of funny, but also that's insane. And clearly, if AI, like QAI platforms made in Israel and bought by Apple can detect facial micro movements, maybe they can detect how you're engaging with something. Algorithms will be able to prevent people from sharing information that runs counter to the status quo. Because if you share it, they can just automatically shut it down or remove it from the internet. And they'll require that you give up tons of privacy to use social media. And honestly, the internet overall already does this. I mean, if you were really to become aware of all of the information that's out there about you, you'd probably lose your mind. The average person is not going to use Proton Mail or Tutanota or Launchpage or start using Linux or Tor browser on a Tails network. They're not going to start self-hosting their internet. So 98%, 99% of people, whatever, are just going to use the internet and just give up all this information. Because I'm a boring person. The only people who are scared of this are people who have something to hide. Yeah, but what if they just start charging you more? I have a whole video planned for surge pricing. These search engines literally sell information about you to insurers. They start selling information about you to jet airlines. So JetBlue and Delta are charging you more if you just had a person in your life pass away. Information security matters in your life. And if you have a stalker or if you have other people from the internet trying to come to your house and fucking kill you, maybe information security matters. And in the future, if you are guilty of wrongthink, maybe you won't want all of your information being cataloged and shared and sold by all of these private companies. Now, I don't mean to fearmonger people, but I do in basically every single video when I'm sharing information about this. If you like this video or any of my videos, please consider subscribing and engaging for the algorithm and code bugs.